We can create men who are setting examples, and that will probably bring in some openness in mind.
You should be more mard, or you should be more like, why are you crying like a girl? You should man up. All these words were used when I was young.
I cannot hold with the fact that we only talk to women. We have to talk to the men, and we have to talk to men of all ages.
Hello and welcome to Sisterhood. This is a show where we confront our challenges and confess our insecurities and figure out what to do about them. The spotlight today is on the idea of toxic masculinity, a phrase that we've been hearing a great deal in the last 2 years or so. But what is toxic masculinity and what are its signs? Just like Simone de Beauvoir said that you're not born a woman, you become one. Is that notion applicable to men? You're not born a man, but you become one. How is that process of boyhood turning into manhood changing in our own society? What are the assumptions we make about it? Is the idea of masculinity learned? In Indian society, we are fed on these conversations that boys will be boys. That becomes the genesis of many problematic issues as boys turn to men. We take a look on the show on many crossroads of this issue of toxic masculinity, whether it's about caste, class, because in India that becomes a paramount discussion when you're thinking of anything else, unfortunately so. Also looking at various aspects of what toxic masculinity does, not just to recipients of it, such as women and other genders, but to men themselves. What kind of mental health challenges and low confidence problems does that create? Let me now introduce you to my fantastic set of guests. On the show today, I'm talking to content creator and a social media activist, Andre Borges, who has been raised in an all-boys school and reflects on things that made him uncomfortable growing up because he was thrown into a structure that he had to follow. Andre, thanks very much for joining us. We need to have deeper and sort of more widespread conversations on the term toxic masculinity. But first, what is toxic masculinity and how does one identify it?
So I can give you very basic examples. If you Google it, you'll find when it comes to men, it's or those who identify as men, it comes to aggression and violence and general sexist and misogynistic behavior and stuff like that. And yes, to a degree that is quite a part and package of what toxic masculinity is. But there are very, very small behavioral patterns that people show that might be kind of misconstrued as being normal masculine traits or masculinity traits. But do very well fall within, the theme of toxic masculinity.
So one of the things about toxic masculinity is that it's so embedded in homes, in our workplaces, in our peer groups, that sometimes it seems like the normal. When you started looking at these aggressions, these signs of toxic masculinity, what did you pick? Like, for example, this might be prevalent in people's homes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's all forms of toxic masculinity are embedded because the patriarchy is so overreaching, right? Like we are and have been for centuries a patriarchal society. So yes, I mean, you rightly pointed out, all of this starts at a very, very basic level, which is homes, schools, work organizations, colleges, friend groups, stuff like that. So when I was growing up, I went to an all-boys school. And I don't know if you guys have been to an all-boys school, but it is a very different dynamic than going to like I would say even a girls' school or a co-ed school, because the entire growing up, everyone's hitting puberty, everyone's growing up, and everyone is being conditioned by the patriarchy, by masculinity, by various drivers through pop culture, social media. At that time, there wasn't social media, pop culture, films, and stuff like that, of how a man is supposed to be, what kind of masculine energy should you exude?
Andre, I think you make some very important points. And now on the show, I'd like to bring in Param Sahib, who's a designer from Amritsar, who's doing some breakthrough work with colorful patterns and is gender non-conforming. He talks about his growing up as somebody who wanted to break free from societal expectations of a young boy. He played with dolls, as he grew up, he was reprimanded for still being interested in dolls and things that seemed all colorful and fashion designery as opposed to, sort of something gray and black and so on. But let him tell his story, and I'd like to bring him on the show first. Param, thanks very much for joining us. What was the kind of conditioning that we all are put through? For somebody like yourself, when you were growing up, how were you conditioned to think that you were a boy?
When the family members are not accepting and their minds are not conditioned in a way that they can accept these things and let it go, because a child wants to do what he wants to do. So I think that is when they try to teach them that this is not what men do. This is not what we are supposed to wear. This is not what. So I think from there, if you start accepting the child and his various ways that you want to branch out into, I think that is where we start wrong.
Do you think this is really nothing but an effort to kill curiosity? I mean, how many of us have seen our friends, both men and women, be interested in things that were not traditionally for them? Girls interested in Bob the Builder, boys interested in Barbies, and wanting to play. Where does that curiosity get killed or nipped?
So, no. Actually, I had a lot of my male friends in school. So I used to carry my Barbie at school. I was in a day boarding school, and after the school, we used to play with it. And at that point, a lot of my male friends joined. Until and unless they were being told from other seniors in the school, what are you doing? You're playing with Barbie dolls. So I think that is where you realize that, okay, this is not what I'm supposed to do. I think it's also, it's most of the time how society sees us. And as a child, that kind of stays in your mind that, society think that this is not right. So I think it stays on.
Param, is there an Indian brand of toxic masculinity according to you?
So I do believe that there is not a class, I would say, but there's a certain sensibility. There's a certain way you look into things. So I think being considered as a man, I think it's considered a privilege. And I think it's not just today, it has been going on, and that mentality is being passed on to generations from generations, and we cannot eradicate it. I think what we can do is we can create role models, we can create people who talk about it openly, we can create men who are setting examples, and that will probably bring in some openness in minds.
I also talked to Sonu Sood, somebody who's seen as a boisterous hero in the traditional definition of Bollywood, but during the pandemic he became the man with a heart. How did that change things for him in the film industry? How did he go from being this Bollywood celebrity to a real hero of people? What did that mean for the masculine brand that he really represented?
Do some extra work. When people used to point fingers, I used to say, please come and join my team. I need more helping hands to reach out to more people. One or two of them join, and every single day they still feel embarrassed. Okay, they thought about that this is not right. But I think the best way to send a message is if someone points at one good work you have done, you have to do 10 more. So that one day they inspire, said, okay, we are wasting our time pointing fingers. It's our job to do also good and right in life. So I think that's the biggest lesson that I've learned, and that I try to convey every single day. मैं हमेशा बोलता हूँ कि इम्पोर्टेंट लेसन्स ऑफ लाइफ ना तो किसी स्कूल में सिखाते हैं, ना किसी किताबों में लिखे होते हैं, हर रोज एक्सपीरियंस से होते हैं. When I was helping all these people, my kids also get requests on the social media कि हमें कैंसर हो गया, प्लीज बचाइए, हमें ये प्रॉब्लम हो गया. So they forward me those links and they said कि डैडी आपने फॉलो किया उनके साथ, उसको कैंसर वाला पेशेंट मुझे मैसेज करा, आपने देखा. So I think that's what teaches them every single day कि यार जरूरत है. They see their father standing at the gate 1-2 hours every single day speaking to the needy people, कैसे उसको solve करते हैं. So I think this is their learning.
I've also got Ratna Pathak Shah, who's a mum of 2 sons, and she talks about the problems of us not paying enough attention to how we raise boys in society, rather than constantly focusing on issues that women face.
Patriarchy has been absolutely devastating for men. I mean, look at the idea that we feed into a son, the level of entitlement that is constantly showered on that poor child. So I really cannot, I cannot hold with the fact that we only talk to women. We have to talk to the men, and we have to talk to men of all ages. It will be easier to talk to the younger ones, of course. But to get the older ones to change their mind, oh, that's going to be really tough. So it needs to be done, and definitely what men have had to take onto themselves, apart from the fact of having to earn a living, constantly the pressure of that, constantly the pressure of pushing yourself in education and becoming better and better and better, owning the most expensive things at one end of the spectrum, and at the other end of the spectrum, producing a lot of male sons, etc. The pressures are terrible on that person's soul.
And while we're on this issue, here's a look at what many others are saying about it.
It's just about education and behavior and parenting, things like that. What you learn while you're growing up and what you see, and the kind of society and place you live in, and how we all are treating each other. But it all starts at your own house. So this kind of awareness about what it means to be a man should start at your home, and your parents and your family is involved in that. I think it's the environment and it's the surroundings that one is raised in, and what one sees reflected back on their screens.
I should be responsible in the kind of stories that I am a part of to try and at least break and shatter my own gender biases, because I think this kind of polarity between men and women and the patriarchal narrative is just so boring now. It's not even something I like. It's like fighting it feels like, why am I doing this? It's 2021, and I personally, for me, I feel talking about it on social media, I find I never have the words to really explain the inequity, and so I'd rather speak about it through my work, where I play a woman who is a woman like no other. She's not playing the quintessential stereotype of a certain kind of woman.
One of the big issues in society is that we are unable to respect all genders for what they are, for how they feel, and what they stand for. And that is the crux of why we are unable to accept someone who chooses to be different, who identifies themselves aside of the binary. Joining me now is Alex, who's a genderqueer man, well known as Maya the drag queen. Nitish, who is a homoromantic cisgender man and well known as Shabnam Bewafa. Well, hi. My first question to you is that, how difficult is for you to fit in a climate of toxic masculinity, which seems to be the status quo for the moment?
Alright, so on this note, I would like to inform you that different people, they have different notions for toxic masculinity. A certain group of people, they personally believe that it deals with everything that deals with men. For some people, it means that it deals with the notion that a child feels when it wants to try something new. And for some people, it basically relates to dominance of the men we have in India or around the world who wants to dominate women or effeminate kids like me. Growing up, I was bullied a lot, and through drag, I believe that I actually challenged those notions, those stereotypes that came in the package when I decided that I need to come out and I need to put my voice at the forefront to make this place better for everyone. But I believe that being Shabnam or just being on any stage or just being vocal, I was ready to celebrate my underdogs. And I was really ready to share all unsaid things or unheard things that people should actually listen to, actually step into my shoes and realize what I go through on a daily basis. And this has really changed my perspective as a drag queen, as a person. It evolved me as a person. But also these things that do exist. And we usually feel that it only exists in some stages or with some particular people. But growing up with anyone, regardless of how do you identify yourself, you're taught or trained to behave in a certain manner, behave in a certain uniform, wear a certain uniform, or how to present yourself at certain events. So for men, it has usually been up to a toxic masculinity, and also women, they are somewhat toxic to the men in deciding that how masculine they should be, how tough they should be.
So from my experience, I started drag way back in 2014 September, and since then it's been an ongoing conversation because first of all, we live in a patriarchal society where men are seen like the forefronters, or men are like you should be more mard, or you should be more like, why are you crying like a girl? You should man up. all these words were used when I was young. Every time, I think even to a point where the people were like, you should not walk like that. You should not walk like a lady. You should walk more like a man. I mean, who has put all of these norms and rules? Like, who told the society that they have to do all of this? So since then, I've been questioning. I'm like, why are people being told like this? Why are people being told that this is the way it has to be? So when I started drag, I wanted to be like, hey, I can whoever I want to be. I can be a Malayali drag queen who's performing on stage, and that is more than enough. Like, for me to put a statement out there that anybody can choose whoever they want to be, and that's exactly the reason why I chose to make Maya the drag queen. So just to give a side slap to toxic masculinity.
Do you see any change in society? And if you do, is it coming in largely from, activists? Do you think that at a fundamental level, mothers or families are still fairly unaccepting of gender non-conforming people?
Like, I reached a point where for 25 years of my life, right now I'm 32, 25 years, this is before I came out, I've been trying to go with what my family was telling me to do, what the society was dictating me to do. And I got tired because I felt like I'm not happy, I'm not being myself. So that is when I was like, you know what, I need to stand up for myself, I need to be who I am, I need to be totally me.
How do you perceive your own journey through society's expectations, families' expectations from you?
See, when I was growing up, we never had the access to a lot of information. We were misinformed about so many things. When I was growing up, you won't believe I've read some stupid things on my textbook, my school textbook, which were not really real. And in our school education system, like not even in high school, but in the whole education system that we especially have in India, no one really wants to talk about all these serious matters, the political matters we have to face after being an adult. No one actually prepares us for that. Or even when I was growing up, I was realizing about my bodily changes and my sexuality. No one was really upfront to even talk about it in my school. And I believe I have personally realized that education and awareing people is the best way to bring any change in this world. Indeed, whenever I read about all these topics, I got to know that this is right, this is wrong. So I believe these things should be they should be in our education system, in our textbooks since the beginning only. Because not anyone or everyone would be so smart and sassy like me to Google it or to see it in a positive way. People will have, or the children might have, the decided notions for them their family might have put in them because the change begins at home.
I think we need to educate people, talk to them, make them understand that what drag is all about, that drag is an art form at the end of the day. And people need to understand that men had to step into the roles for women, and because women were not allowed to perform on stage. So that is the crux of it. Like, if I have to say, the confidence that we built. There are also this, a popular kind of stereotype that drag queens actually make fun of women. We don't make fun of women. We actually perform as a woman, or we actually do, go on stage and we actually accentuate the feminine qualities of a woman. So it's something that people still keep talking. People still keep saying that how dare you make fun of me and all of that. But I'm like, darling, we don't make fun of you. We actually appreciate you. We actually, adore what you do, or adore you as a woman. So that is something which we build on. And I keep telling people that LGBT rights and women's rights go hand in hand. There is no difference. Like people keep keeping it separate, but it's not separate. We're supposed to be intersectional. We're supposed to be together. So that's something which people still need to understand.
This is the small message I have for everyone, that keep working harder for your dreams. There's a lot of inner homophobia and homophobia around the world. But if you're okay with your small circle, if you're okay with your own people and you know what you're doing, then no one can stop.
Thanks very much. I really appreciate your joining us. There you have it. There are many aspects of toxic masculinity that we don't pay attention to, and they're very inherent to how we raise our children. What can be done is, of course, a complete sensitization of all genders and acceptance of everybody in the way they identify themselves. Most importantly, get away from the idea of boys will be boys and start talking about every aspect of emotional and mental well-being that impacts boys, young men, and of course, those who are creating that support system around them. Idea is to sensitize the society by small and big efforts to ensure the toxic masculinity is something that ebbs away and does not become a central issue for many other aspects of people's grown-up lives. So stay tuned to the She the People YouTube channel. Click on that bell icon to subscribe to us, and we look forward to keep at it, bringing new issues, new elements, new discussions, new faces, new voices to discuss the world that is shaping right before us.